Hello.
Hey, I'm just getting the Facebook set up.
Cool. Need to change my name. Do you have a light that you can turn on in front of you?
Am I not visible? Did I get darker?
Yeah.
Okay. Says there's some attendees. Hi, Jenny.
Are we broadcasting?
Yeah. I don't know where this light thing is. Maybe I'll do this. Hold on. How's that?
Much better.
Cool.
Okay, so I am live for a Q&A with Culture. Myisha.
What's that?
Oh, just announcing who you are and what we're doing. I'm on Instagram Live now.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do the Facebook. It seems like it would only go straight to my wall.
Oh, that's all right.
I think anyway.
So for those of you joining on Instagram Live, we're going to be doing a Q&A, but those are going to be coming through the webinar that we set up today. So unfortunately, you won't be able to ask questions. Hi, Lisa. Thank you.
I'm gonna put it in one of my groups anyway, just to see what happens.
Okay. It's a grand experiment.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it says webinar is now streaming live on Facebook. Cool. And did you want to record this as well?
Yeah, I'm recording already.
Great.
So I'll have all that going.
Okay. I'm ready when you are.
All right. Well, we have Jenny. Let's allow her to talk.
All right. Hi, Jenny. You're the reason this is happening.
Okay, Jenny, whenever you're ready, you can.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. Thanks for connecting us. Jenny is the person who brought us together today. How's it going?
Marriage is what brings us here today. Sorry, Princess Bride quote. Carry on.
So one thing I don't know actually is how Myisha and Jenny got linked up. And that would be an interesting story considering Jenny's the one who connected me to Myisha.
It was true fate.
That's right.
It was like the cosmos aligning. She came to an event at which I was at my happiest, and we just met in the shoe department, and we became buddies.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, she came to a Square event, and we struck up a conversation, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna be friends.
And you didn't know what she did at all?
I wasn't doing this at all then. I was studying. I was still studying. So yeah, I remember posting that I got certified as a sex coach, and Jenny hit me up and was like, what is this about? Tell me more.
Like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Tell me more. So yeah, the rest is history.
That's great. I want to say hello to LipMedX, LIP MedX, whomever you are. And we'll give a couple more minutes for people to join, and then I'll start the intro.
Sounds good.
Just so we have a few people on here. And then we got Kayleen joining as well. So there'll be a handful of us that are rolling. This is my first webinar.
Yeah, we're breaking your webinar cherry tonight.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna start talking about that too, huh? Cool.
How does it feel?
It's actually, I mean, I'm glad that I waited.
For the right time with the right person.
This is special. I wanted it to be special.
I think it is going to be special.
Okay.
Look, I have a candle and everything. I got a candle going.
Yeah, I really appreciate you changing your clothes. I wasn't able to do that. Jenny, I'm gonna drop you back down to attendee, so it's not a distracting black box up there. If you want to say anything, just type it, or you'll be allowed to speak verbally, and they can hear you.
Right.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Because we got a few folks here, and I don't want to burn up all their time with us chit-chatting. But to get you guys started from scratch, my name is Maceo Keeling. A lot of people know me as Maceo Paisley. I'm the founder and director of a nonprofit organization called Citizens of Culture. It is an organization that uses arts and culture to establish critical thinking, to develop critical thinking and emotional intelligence. And so that means that we work, and we use that to work in different areas of culture, whether that be work-life balance or marriage and family. We really want to create spaces where people have the opportunity to move towards making their best decisions and living their most fulfilled lives through art and discussion. The program we're working on now is we're working under a program called Orchestra Life Studio, and relationship practice is the specific section, the specific vertical that we're talking about, which is all about relationships, sex, dating, family building, family planning, consent, gender roles, and it is communication, boundaries. So everything that has to do with, one, modern romance, but also building relationships, whether they be short or long term. We're currently enrolling for the next session of relationship practice that starts on March 16th here in LA. And what we do in that course is we invite some really awesome experts to help us unpack conversations that might be of a sensitive nature. And so each week we have a different guest speaker. And I thought, well, for those members of our community who aren't necessarily in Los Angeles or who aren't able to sign up for that class, let's try out doing some webinar stuff. And a close friend of mine, Jenny, recommended that she almost really demanded that I meet Myisha. And we made it happen after a while. And so I had the opportunity to find out about Myisha's work. She's a certified sex coach, and I wanted to invite her here to give a little bit of a sample of the way relationship practice works, but also an opportunity to sort of support the work that she does, because I think it's really amazing and really special. So without further ado, I want to introduce Myisha and let her give a little background on her work and how she found herself in this practice.
Thank you, Myisha. I'm super stoked to be here with you this evening. Thanks again to Jenny for connecting us, and Jenny's on the call tonight. I am a certified sex coach. I'm also a dating coach. And yeah, basically I help people have better sex lives. That's what I do. That's what I get paid for. And it is a magical job, wonderful job. The reason that I decided to become a sex coach is because I felt like sexuality was this access point to help unlock not only your intimacy within your partnerships, but also to improve the way that you move about through the world. I'm kind of a firm believer in the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And I really feel like I'm honored and blessed to be able to help people look and examine their sex lives so that they can make these tweaks and adjustments. I feel like sexuality is something that not a lot of people get permission to prioritize in their life. And so it gets treated separately from everything else that we do. And I really enjoy working either one-on-one with individuals or with couples to help them unlock some of that potential that a lot of us have inside and are curious about, but have just never been encouraged to talk about and explore. My framework is feminism, so I'm always looking for results that are egalitarian within partnerships. I'm always looking to empower the feminine, and that can take many different forms. I've had clients where the masculine party has more feminine traits that need to be empowered in the relationship. I also love working with LGBTQI, poly folks, and kink friendly and aware. And yeah, I also really value diversity. So my clients are all from different backgrounds and experiences. Some have never had sex, and some of them have been in marriages for 16 years. So I do think that it's an honor to be a part of people's lives throughout the course of their development, wherever that starts. Hopefully it ends in something that is desired. So yeah, that's a bit about me. I write for Ravishly, which is a feminist online publication, and I'm working on a book. And as you know, I see clients. So you can learn more about that at myishabattle.com. But tonight, I'm going to answer your questions.
Awesome. So as I said, I typed a second ago. If you have any questions, whether they be about the logistics of working with a sex coach and clarifying more about what that is, or specific questions around the subject matter that we're discussing, go ahead and type them in or raise your hand on your little toolbar, and I'll make sure that you get promoted to a place where they can people can hear you speak or type in your question, or I'll reiterate it. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of just roll into a chat. And I think the first part of it will be just a little bit of a discussion. And then, hopefully you guys will chime in with your questions and I'll read those off. The first thing that I noticed is that this is a field of study or a profession in the first place. So there's obviously a demand for it, and I wanted to find out with you, Myisha, what are the common reasons people come to you, or what are the things that lead people to your doorstep, so to speak?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll break that down into individuals versus partners. Individuals are coming to me because they're looking to date, or they're dating someone and they're not sure how to reveal themselves sexually. And by that, I mean, maybe they're struggling with identifying their own desires. They're not quite sure what they want. And they have a new partner and they're kind of like, I don't know, I don't have the words for this. Or it could be that specifically they have things that they know that they want in their sexual relationship that are trickier to navigate, such as kink or fetish, something that is harder to discuss with a partner. So they come to me with the need to build on those communication skills and to sometimes even just home in on what those needs are. Because as I mentioned before, we're not taught to prioritize this aspect of our lives. And so a lot of people get out there in the dating world and are just like, I don't know, what am I supposed to be doing? How's everybody else doing it? But I do believe that we do have a lot of self-knowledge, and it's my job as a coach to coach that out of people. So that's individuals. And then for couples or partnerships, the biggest thing is mismatched desire. The fact of the matter is, if you're dating somebody short term or long term, you're going to want sex at different times. You're going to want different types of sex at different times. And that can present many challenges in a relationship that can spill over into other areas of your relationship, and vice versa. The fact that other things are going on in your relationship can spill into the frequency and the quality of your sex life. So I work with a lot of clients around that, figuring out what's behind the mismatch. And a lot of times it's one partner does need a certain thing in order to feel aroused or present sexually in the relationship. And they're not getting that, or they're not getting enough of it to make them feel compelled to want to have sex, when the other person wants to. And then there's also just innate desires. Like, a lot of people don't want to have sex at the same frequency as their partners. So there's that. I also work with folks, as I mentioned earlier, who are poly. So I might work with one couple who's part of like a triad or a quad, and work with them on issues specifically related to their relationship. But inevitably, other things might come up that are happening in other relationships that they have. So yeah, those are kind of the big ones. Like, figuring out how to communicate what you want is a big thread. That is a big, big, big thread, no matter who it is.
Okay. So when you were talking about a couple things that stood out to me, one is individuals and their, identifying their needs. Now, when we talk about sex, sometimes we have like religious stuff that we've experienced or spiritual stuff that we've grown up in. How do you frame, sex in your coaching practice, as far as, where you orient it, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, or is it just, like a physical thing? How do you approach that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the training program that I went through, which was through Sex Coach U, it was founded by Dr. Patty Britton, and she also created a fantastic model that incorporates a lot of what you just mentioned. So it's a model of looking at sexuality holistically. And as a coach, what I have in my mind is always what's going on for the client mentally, emotionally, bodily. So any body issues that might be occurring and health wise, energy and spirit. So MEBES, that's MEBS, and that's the MEBS model is what I use with my clients. So it recognizes that all of these areas of life are tied into sexuality and have this relationship to how we express ourselves sexually, but it's unique from person to person. So for instance, someone might present to me an issue of low desire, which is also a very common concern for my clients. And they may have been brought up in a very religious home that taught them that to have sexual thoughts was a sin. And so it's not that they're not having sexual thoughts, or they've never allowed themselves to indulge in them or to explore them safely and consensually. And that could present some blockages. So it's a little bit of a spiritual issue because their belief system conflicts with how they're thinking and feeling. And it's a bit of a body issue and an energy issue because those desires aren't being released, and then the kind of inverse happens where it's just just complete squashing of sexuality in general. So yeah, I see that sometimes, but it's always more complicated than just, oh, it's religion, or oh, I'm too tired. It's always like a combination of things, but to varying degrees from client to client.
Okay. And then so I guess, some of it is therapeutic, but you're not like a psychologist necessarily. So, you might have someone who's working a lot and they are tired, but that's like fatigue and exhaustion or whatever. Um, do you then, try to weave that into and focus on the sexual impact, or is it sometimes that the issue isn't really related to sex at all?
Yeah, I'm a bit, the only thing that I'm like really Freudian about is I believe everything has to do with sex. But that's pretty much where I end my Freudian analysis. To go back to your earlier point, like what I do is not therapy. So I do have my master's in psychology. You're not going to find that in every coach, but that's the path that I chose because I love like kind of getting into the inner workings of the mind. But with coaching, we're looking at what's happening for the client in the present moment and how do we get them from that point to a point in the future where they're better aligned with their goals, whatever those goals are. My job is not to judge what those goals are, but to help someone find out how to get there. So I wanted to clarify that because therapy is more about looking at the past and familial relationships and bonds. And it's great. I love therapy and I'm a product of therapy, but it's not what I do. So you were right in that. And then, yeah, addressing your question about, remind me one more time.
Yeah, when does it become, you were saying everything's about sex, but how do we find out where
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, where is the line? So I work with my clients a lot on making adjustments in their life that don't have anything to do with sex. So oftentimes people will come to me and they'll be a bit scared. They're like, "Oh, what are you going to make me do? This is weird." And it is like it's a big hurdle for people to decide to come see me and talk about their sex lives. But the reality is there's a lot of changes that we can do on a day-to-day basis that give us access points to sexual energy. And those things are like creating ritual for yourself, a lot of self-care. A lot of women do not allow themselves self-care to the extent that they really need it to recover from patriarchy, to recover from all of the demands now that we have on ourselves, being out in the world, career hustlers, mothers, partners, sisters, the whole shebang. Anyway, so I look at what's going on for you outside of the bedroom that could be having an impact on the bedroom, and how can we build in activities on a daily basis. And sometimes that's as simple as, have a cup of tea for yourself every day, and don't think about anything else. while you're having that cup of tea. Really focus in on the feeling and the sensations that because a lot of the times we get blocked. We're so busy living from here up that we forget that we have all of these amazing senses, and sex needs the senses, and it needs us to connect in with our being. So it's something that I do see a connection between the outside world and the outside kind. I don't see it there being much separation, but I do see that they feed into each other. So
yeah, one of the things that we cover in Sex ID is actually interesting. This issue, or this concern about being in your head and not in your body, or like all these things going through your mind. And so I guess how do we talk about the goalpost? And for those people who aren't they're curious, they're obviously here on the webinar, but they're wondering, what is it, can we improve our sex lives, or is there a specific issue that we're trying to solve? What does it sound like if we've gotten to a good place? Or what is some language that you've heard after working with people that says like, I'm better than I was, right? Because it's not like your body, you lose 10 pounds, you can see the 10 pounds.
Yeah.
So how do we know we're making progress?
Yeah, when you're having good sex and you're living, and I'm not saying you need to be having partnered sex, but you're having good sex with yourself.
Say that one more time.
Someone else. So you feel that it's a different energy, and clients report to me time and time again that sometimes just making the leap to work with someone like me, to give over to the fact that this is important, that this is something that is all of our birthrights, whether we choose to indulge in sex with, outside of marriage, inside of marriage, with one partner forever, with many partners throughout the course of our life. It's something that was given to us all at birth. And when you decide that that's going to be a priority for you, like maybe there's nothing inherently like even that bad with what you're doing. I have clients too that are like, things are okay, but I feel like they could be better. I feel like there's something that I haven't tapped into. So making that investment in yourself, in that energy, there is a shift. It just starts to happen. And people do feel it. So other words that people use when they've worked with me are empowered. I do love to empower people to allow themselves pleasure. So I think, for lack of a better term, I've kind of been toying with this idea of being a pleasure advocate. And that has been my role. And I think when people embrace that and embrace that that's something that can be part of their life, they feel it.
Yeah. So one of the first steps, it sounds like, is being comfortable with your own desires, expectations, sexual identity.
Right.
And that's one big chunk of the work you do, is helping clarify what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what you can have more of. Okay. And then you were talking about, you talked a second about partners, mismatched desire.
Mm-hmm.
So once let's say I've figured out that I like what I like and I want to have these experiences, how do we go about letting someone know, or do we just have to be brave and like throw it out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's saddening to me that we have to use that language of like, you have to be brave to say what you want sexually, but it's real. It is real. That's how a lot of people feel. It's a big hurdle to say that you want something a certain way, or that you want to try something for the first time, maybe with a partner that you've been with for a while, and you want to explore, or there's always been something that you want to do and it's just never happened for you, and so you want to try it out on somebody. So it is a bit of an act of bravery, but what I like to tell people is that your truth is your filter. So what's behind that fear is usually that when a person says what they want, that the other person is going to say no, and that's the end of the conversation, and that they're going to feel terrible because it's a rejection of not only their sexual preferences or their ideas and thoughts about sex, but themselves. Like, we're deeply entwined with our thoughts and ideas about sexuality. Like I said, it's our birthright and it's very personal. But I think that pushing past that fear and recognizing that in order to have the kind of sex that you want, you have to tell your truth. And when people reject that truth, they're doing you a favor. So, yeah, your truth is your filter. You get to filter people out of your life who aren't going to align with you. And it's a hard thing to say, but I tell the people who are dating that quite frequently. It's like,
right. And so you're a dating coach as well. So it sounds like there's some vulnerability that you have to be comfortable with in order to speak your truth. Is there any guidance or, or perspective you have on creating or identifying safe partners, maybe emotionally or physically, to, sort of give your honest opinion to?
Mm-hmm. This is so individual and specific, because what feels safe for me and the time frame for that happening is much different than somebody else's. So when I work with dating clients, it's really about figuring out what that looks like for them. Some people are like, I just need to know that this person has never cheated on somebody before and that they really like me, and that for some reason creates a safe space for them, right? And some people might be like, I need to be with them, 4 to 5 months, really like consistently seeing them, know that I'm their only partner, like have locked it down, and then I'll feel like it's okay for me to express myself. So my job is really to figure out with them or help them figure out, like, what are those parameters that make you feel safe? But in terms of identifying partners too, I love Dan Savage's Good Game and Giving, the GGG kind of qualifiers. And it's really important to have that in the back of your brain, that if you're looking for something specifically sexually and you want to have a good experience, you want to feel good afterwards, having a partner that you feel is good and game for whatever and very giving, those are good qualifiers, I think.
Okay, good. Okay, I guess, yeah, good, giving, game. And so what that speaks to is your partner's willingness to be accepting of you in some way as well, right? That's saying that your pleasure is important, regardless of what side of the gender side of things you're on. Awesome. So now with dating, let's talk about dating a little bit. Do we find that there is some stigma or shame around people wanting to, be casual and then transition those relationships into more serious, or transition from being in a long-term relationship to more casual? I know that you talked earlier on about how to initiate sexual energy in relationships, whether it's, we've been friends for a long time, but I'm very interested, or, I was with someone for a long time, how do I get back in the game? How do you orient around that? Like, is it like very practical? I want to go out there and have casual sex, hey, or is it a little bit more exploratory?
Yeah, I think that the process of figuring that out is exploratory, because we come into dating with so many coulds and shoulds. I should be looking for a husband. I should be looking for the father of my kid. I should be looking for a woman who went to the same caliber college as me. There's a lot of stuff out there that we get caught up here, and we forget that, like, we only have one life to live, and there's so much to explore, and there's so much within us that we can explore. The shoulds and the woulds tend to like squash all of that. And again, what I try to do is empower that choice. So if you come to me and you're like, look, I have never dated anybody seriously and I want to give it a go. I don't know where to start because everything I end up trying just, falls apart. I get ghosted. Nobody commits. we can look at that and start to say, okay, so your new goal is to find a long-term relationship. What are you doing to get there? What apps are you using? How are you presenting yourself? What are you putting out into the world energetically that's going to attract or not attract the person or the type of person that you're trying to get? And likewise, if you're trying to hook up, you are really not looking for anything casual. What are the messages? Are you having a lot of people who are trying to lock you down? And what kind of messages are you sending if all you're trying to do is out, go out and have a good time? And that's tricky because a lot of people want to keep their options open to both. And that's fine. But I like to, I don't know, I'm very practical. So I like to try to get people to focus in on, all right, you can always change the goal, right? But like, let's focus on one thing. It's tricky because, yeah.
Okay. So then the next question, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I had a glitch on my computer for a second. Next question is, when we talk about pleasure and you were saying good giving game and kink, how do we know, what is normal anyway, right? Like there's like making out, and then there's like holding hands, and sometimes people think holding hands is more intimate than sex, and some people think oral sex is more intimate than anal sex, and some people think anal sex is, so how are we supposed to step into this world when it seems like there's such a big wide range and we all have these different backgrounds that are telling us, oh, that person is a kinky, that person's a freak, and I'm normal, or feelings of I'm freak, I'm kinky, and this other person's boring, or whatever, like how do we make sense of that world?
We make sense of that world by prioritizing what feels correct for us. So I try not to use the term normal. If somebody is expressing to me something like low desire or, mismatched desire, those kinds of things, I tend to say like that's very common. It's common to have those experiences. And I think that makes people feel like they're a part of a larger like experience that is human, rather than being like, well, here's the bell curve of experiences and you fall in this, kind of like very normal zone, and everything else that's an outlier that absolutely exists. We know it exists because we've tested, and everything is a bell curve. So we know that outliers are out there. The only thing that's problematic is that we've labeled outliers as less than. If we could accept that for most behaviors in life, including sex, there is this bell curve of like common activities, normal activities, quote unquote, and then all these interesting, fun things that happen on the tails that are just as cool and just as fine, I think we'd be a lot better off than placing a value on this section is good and sanctioned, and these things are just, they should be pushed more towards the center. I'm not a believer in that at all. So a lot of it is shifting the thinking around, why do we care about what other people are doing and how they're doing it? If it doesn't give you joy, if it doesn't give you pleasure, if it doesn't satisfy who you are as a sexual person, then how does that relate to you at all, really?
Right. But now if I'm on a first date with somebody and, it's dessert, dessert has come and things are winding down and the bill's now about to be paid and we're both feeling that chemistry, is that the time to like ask someone what their safe word is, or? Yeah.
No, but I feel like it's the time to say that you're interested. And I think this is a very big problem that we have, risking that time, especially that time. I was just on a first date recently, and it's like, yeah, bills getting paid, cars are getting ordered. What do you do and how do you manage that? And it's like, sometimes it's just being like, hey, I like you. Like people are so afraid of that. And they're afraid because of what could come back at them, which is like, oh, whoa, But
Right.
I don't think there's any harm in expressing desire. And
Yeah.
you can express desire in very like respectful ways. If it's saying I like you and I'd like to see where this night takes us, And if that's home in separate cars, great. But if not, I'm game. You know what I mean? I mean, that might not resonate for a lot of people. Hopefully some people I may have inspired to use that kind of language. I
Yeah.
personally like that kind of language.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, to shift a little bit, I know we have different experiences of the members of our attendees, but so I'll ask this question for the group in my own words. But so I'm a guy. I'm a straight guy. I date women, and I think in the past couple of years we've seen the climate change around um, you know how people have been responding to sexual advances out in the world, right? And so in the interest of having like a sex positive world, do we think it's appropriate to how do how does a how do you navigate so the power dynamics and the social dynamics where it's men and women are concerned, or where there's maybe just men and women are concerned around that time is coming, and or you're eager to get things going after you've made it to like the second destination or whatever. When it comes to consent, I feel like there's a lot of clumsiness around that issue. And I think the kink community has a lot to teach us, but it doesn't always make its way down to like the general public. So is it that maybe we just need to, try and fail, put our interests out there and say, I want to have sex with you, or, like maybe that's too medical sounding. But
For some people,
yeah, for some people, yeah. So I guess it's maybe a style question. How do we go about, practicing our style of communication? I know some people want to talk dirty. That's other people's. That's not their thing, really. It makes them blush and it makes them all giggly. And then, some people I've heard talking kills their mood, so to speak. They want to do it more intuitively. So if you could speak to that a little bit, that would be amazing.
Yes. I will say I am somebody who, as much as I use my words for work in my personal life, I would probably gravitate towards one of those people who doesn't like to talk too much. But words make me feel safe. And knowing that I'm with someone who knows how to use their words, and knowing that I know how to use my words, makes me feel like the situation, even in the absence of words, is still going to be supportive of my safety and my enjoyment, and that there will be check-ins along the way to ensure that those things, that I am being taken care of and that my partner is being taken care of. So you're right, it does come down to style, and it comes down to the type of connection that you want to have and that you can build with the person that you're with. So for me, consent is so much more than just in the moment getting permission for certain things to happen. Consent is really like an ongoing conversation throughout the course of an evening or the course of a relationship even. This is something that I really feel strongly about. I believe that there's need for a discussion about consent within long-term partnerships as well. So we talk about it because we're just, we're very short-sighted people. So we like to kind of pigeonhole this discussion of consent to, it needs to be in a dating environment, and then sexual, when there's a sexual component involved. But I think consent can be built into our everyday lives, just like those other rituals that I have that I was telling you about. Building in ritual kind of gives you a connection to the here and the now. Consent also brings you to the here and the now and says, okay, maybe these things can happen and maybe other things can't right now. I think that one of the biggest barriers that people have to speaking up and talking about sex is that their experience has shown them that if they propose something, also brings you to the here and the so when they ask for something, they're going to get shut down, and there's no room for discussion because we're not taught how to negotiate sex. So one thing I throw out is if we could start thinking about our sexual relationships, like how we would think about picking a restaurant to go with our partners, life would be a lot easier. You know, if someone says, no, I'm not feeling pizza tonight, like I kind of want to do something healthier, that the other partner has an opportunity to say, okay, cool, all right, that's how you're feeling. Then let's go up the street, you know, to our favorite place that has a lot of vegan options. Let's do that instead tonight. But like maybe because I'm starting to have this craving for pizza and I know it's not going to go away, we can build in pizza night on Friday night. And those kinds of conversations happen easy for us because we're encouraged to have them. The conversation of, hey, you know, like I'm really feeling you right now and I want to like see where this goes sexually. That can end in so many different ways, right? But if we had the tools and the language and the empowerment to say, hey, I really do like your vibe, having a great time. Tonight's not the night, but I do want to see you again. And I do feel a sexual connection with you. And I think that that's something I want to explore. Like how much better would our world be if we could have those kinds of conversations? And the person that we're saying no to could hear that, not take it personally, and not respond with violence in word or in deed.
Right.
Because that's a real problem, in my opinion.
Awesome. Well, I want to make sure that there's some space for questions, and
Yeah.
so I've been saying, like, if you want to ask a question, go ahead and type it in. But I want to leave a little space right now for people to, you know, just absorb what you've been talking about, formulate a question and type it in, or raise their hand with a little button, and then you know, I'll leave about 60 seconds or so just of quiet, and then, you know, we'll keep it going.
Sounds good. And I'm on Instagram Live. If there's anybody who wants to chime in and throw a question at me as well, I can answer it in this forum too.
Yeah, and then you just type down at the bottom or click the raise your hand button, which is something that I saw on my setup before. We're also live on Facebook.
Yeah. I'd love to hear from you guys. You know, I charge for this normally. You're getting free access to me right now. No other time.
Okay. Let's see. Do you see the question from IW?
I don't see it.
Okay. So it says, do you believe most people would benefit from sex coaching?
Yes. And I'll tell you why. I think that sex is so underrated in our culture. But it's treated conflictingly. You know, it's either all powerful or it's meaningless. And we don't get any opportunities as young adults, adolescents, to process what that means for us on an individual level. We're not taught how to communicate about sex. We're certainly not taught how to, you know, express our needs and our wants. And that is a huge disadvantage when in partnership that involves a sexual component. So it manifests in lots of different ways. Some of that is completely internal and is so personal and deep. So I work with clients who are in partnerships and they're looking like to themselves going like, I know that there's something more inside me that I want to express, but I really just don't even know how to access it. And then I work with couples who they may just have such different frameworks for understanding what sex even means in their life. So I think it's something that people can benefit from regardless of if they're alone or if they're partnered, or yeah, any type of configuration. It's just giving yourself that time and that space to prioritize this area of your life, which again, I feel is really important and gets overlooked a lot.
Awesome. Awesome. So there's another question popped up.
Yay.
And then there's also a way you can type a question directly to me. You can try that if you like as well. Another question popped up. How do you restore trust in a relationship? / how does an open relationship thrive? Or how does a committed couple navigate sexual varying preferences in openness? Right. So there's a couple things in there, but I think maybe there's something about restoring trust in a relationship and then open relationship when there's different levels of openness.
Mm-hmm. Restoring trust is a complicated one. And having been in a relationship where there was betrayal, and betrayal can take many forms, by the way. It doesn't have to be cheating. It could be like a secret bank account, some kind of like secret life that someone's not disclosing. It's really difficult to rebuild trust. And for that, I actually do recommend couples therapy. That's an area of relationship building that kind of goes beyond the scope of coaching. And I'll tell you why. Because a lot of times when there's a breakdown in trust and there is betrayal, there is so much that is on the person who is the betrayer to figure out. And a lot of that stuff is happening on an unconscious, deep emotional level. I will recommend a book, though, The State of Affairs by Esther Perel. She's done a lot of research. She's an amazing sex therapist. She's looking at this issue of cheating in a different way, and examining if it happens so frequently, then why are we not really discussing it or studying it and understanding it? So my first advice is to seek out therapy. If that's not in your budget or your value system, check out Esther Perel's book, The State of Affairs, if that's in fact what happened to break the trust in a relationship. Open relationships, I do work with couples in open relationships, and if you don't currently have relationship rules, that is something that I would recommend as well. And if you Google relationship rules, or relationship agreements rather, you should be able to find some pretty great resources on how to create relationship agreements. And actually that's a good tool after a breakdown in trust too. It's like, all right, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about what are the agreements that we have person to person about what's going to happen within the context of our relationship. And then what are the things that we agree are okay to do outside of this relationship? I actually wrote an article for Ravishly about why monogamous couples should have relationship agreements, because with this digital world, there's so much stuff that could be potentially interpreted as cheating or stepping out. So yeah, relationship agreements are great for setting the parameters of what can and cannot happen within the relationship. And it's not that like you're going to break up because someone breaks an agreement, but it creates an expectation that you can come back to and edit, which I think is really important.
Awesome. Yeah, really good. I love that. I'm writing that down for my own thing.
Yeah.
So another question is, very simple. The question's simple. What is the best way to tell a guy you're a virgin without scaring him?
Okay. Let's do a role play. Are you cool with that?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay. So we've been dating for a little bit. Things are getting a little more serious. And I'm ready to have sex with you, and I'm a virgin. So that's my role. And you're going to be my man. So Myisha, this like past few months have been awesome getting to know you. I feel like I'm really connecting with you on a lot of different levels. And I want to take this into the physical realm, but I got to let you know something.
Okay, go for it. I'm open to.
It's kind of scary for me.
I'm open to it. What it sounds. Okay, go. Just lay it on me.
Okay, I've I've never had sex before.
Okay.
Does that, how do you feel about that? Is that something that is weird for you to hear, or?
Well, for me, it's not weird. I think it has to do, I think we should talk about what sex means to you, like emotionally and psychologically. Like if this is really, like I said, when I was doing my first webinar, I wanted it to be with someone like you to just get the most value out of it. But, I think personally what I would feel is a sense of responsibility that might be scary. And I want to make sure that I don't, as your first sexual experience, create a negative impression of the whole thing.
Well, that's really sweet of you to think about, because it is a little scary for me, but I'm not actually waiting for anything special, or I don't think that I need to like marry the first guy I have sex with. It just hasn't happened for me yet. And I think that I would like it to happen with you because I feel really good with you.
Well, I think we should take it slow and see how it goes, but I'm open to that.
Cool. So I hope that maybe helped you with like a few pointers. I think this is really tricky, but my point is showing you, especially just putting Maceo here on the spot. Okay, this is a good test because he's a good man. What did he do? He talked about, okay, all right, I hear you. And I want to check in and make sure that I'm the right person, because if this is meaningful for you in a way that doesn't align with how I see myself in this relationship, then I need to check that with myself. So he opened up the dialogue for me to say, no, this isn't like something that's going to be, life changing for me, other than the fact that after we have sex for the first time, I won't be a virgin. And if that's how you feel, then I think that there's a way that you can communicate that to the person that you're wanting to have sex with. And if they're a good man, they're going to hear that and they're going to give you the space to process it.
Yeah, I definitely was put on the spot by that. Any more questions? Keep them coming. If you have a follow-up question, I'd love to hear from anyone that hasn't spoken. That would be amazing. Just for the variety, I think that was a really important question. And part of the reason I wanted to host this workshop or this webinar is because, just like and we talked about this before, women are doing a lot of work, right? Women are very interested in educating themselves. I know at least one person on here is a guy. And trans people are doing a lot of work. Queer people are doing a lot of work. People in the kink community are doing a lot of work. But there isn't necessarily that work in a public fashion, at least that I've seen, but I'm also not dating guys. I just know I know a lot of them. Men that are doing that work, or straight guys that are doing that work, or men that date women that are doing that work. So one of the trickier questions that I had for you, and I won't keep you too long, but definitely want to make time for more people to ask questions, is, as there's this knowledge gap that's continuing to grow between strangers, maybe you're a woman who's done a lot of thinking and you keep meeting gentlemen that aren't necessarily gentlemen, or you meet dudes that aren't as far along in the conversation. How do we approach conversations like that? Or what are some indicators of, the same thing could have happened, but I could have given a completely different response, right? I could have been like freaked out. And also I talk about sex a lot, and I think about where I fit in relationships a lot. So maybe I could have just said something awkward because I was caught off guard. Something awkward but hurtful. So if you could speak to that a little bit, I mean, how much of ourselves do we put on the line, and how do we appraise potential partners maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot there to unpack. I tend to give people a lot of credit for taking care of each other. And that's something that in this current climate is hard to say, but I think that behind closed doors, the majority of people are having decent experiences, and men are, that's something that they're communicating emotionally, they're being emotional beings, they are noticing things that are unjust and just uncouth that happens within their friend circles and amongst their family and all of that stuff. I believe that we're all sensitive beings and picking all that stuff up. I just think that men aren't as equipped because society does not equip them with the words and the tools to really navigate that. And so you're right, we're seeing that gap. And one of the things I see with my clients, especially straight couples, is, and I'll be writing about this too, like bringing these things up, because as soon as Me Too dropped, it was like, yeah, okay, maybe I was never a victim of sexual assault, but I had something fucked up happen to me that's been sticking with me in my brain forever. And who do I want to talk to about that? My partner. And as these conversations are coming up, men are just like, whoa, 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 had no clue, didn't think it could happen to someone they love, didn't know the nuances of these things and the power dynamics behind these things. And so this is giving us an opportunity, I think, to catch men up on what's been happening under their own noses, and to say, this isn't just a problem amongst women that we have to fix and we have to be policed. Women, gender nonconforming folks, queer folks, like we've been the ones who have been policed, while men get to walk away. And this is something where it warms my heart. I love to see when men are stepping up to the plate and writing about these things in a thoughtful way, demanding that they are that other men look at things differently and start to think critically about these issues. And that's happening too. So I mean, perhaps I'm being a little bit more optimistic than most people now. It's not that I am not aware and I've always been aware of how fucked up gender imbalances are. That's why I do the work that I do. But I am seeing a shift, and I think things like they tend to do, they got worse, and there was this unearthing and it felt horrible. They get worse before they get better. So if you guys haven't read the Michael Ian Black piece about how the boys are not all right, that is a great piece, and it's very short and to the point of just boys need to be re-socialized, or rather socialized in a different way that allows for full expression of emotion. And this can prevent a lot of problems. Yeah.
Okay.
That's your question, but I don't know.
No, that was great. I want to leave a couple more seconds for another question to pop up. Get it, drop it out there, and we can address it. Also, we'll be wrapping up soon. We'll be wrapping up soon.
Cool.
I'll go ahead and get your questions asked while we have the time. I feel like I'm on a radio show.
You are. It's the Myisha Show.
Eminem.
That's right, Eminem. Oh, got another one? Or was that you?
Are some people inherently less sexual than others?
I believe that there's a variance. Hold on, let me start this. I do believe that there's a variance in desire levels. And I do believe that that variance has something to do with gender too. I also believe that that changes over time and with circumstance, but also through health and physiological changes. I have a workshop that I do for women that's called Lust for Life, and I work with an acupuncturist And we talk about cycles of desire and how they're different for men and they're different for women and they're different over the course of the lifetime. So yes, I think we're all born differently, but also sexuality is expressed in many different forms. So your desires could on the surface just look different and be expressed differently than other people's who are more overt, like overtly sexual. So I think there's a distinction there. There's a lot there.
Okay, cool. I'm going to say we'll do last call for, oh, hey, what about when you think about ending a longer term relationship? What do you think about?
Okay.
This is more of a dating question, I think.
So how to end a long-term relationship, I think is, it's rough. And I think that the approach for me personally, and I'll be writing about this too, I think the approach of the breakup should be reflective of the style of the relationship. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like, have you been together many, many years and you were building a future together? That conversation looks and feels different, is what I'm trying to say, than somebody who you've been together for 6 months to a year, you've never met their family, you've never talked about kids and, getting married. I think that maybe the common issues there might be overlapping issues, but I think how you have that conversation, it should be reflective of like what happened and how invested you were in the relationship. It's really tricky. And I think that, this is also something that varies from person to person. If you want, you can to give me more details about this. I'm happy
Yeah.
to
There's
chat.
they don't want the other person to think they weren't good enough. Incompatibility and each person kind of having their own quirks and what works for them. You're realizing after some period of time, this isn't a good fit. It's not, it's not working. They've added some more information.
Okay, I see that coming through. So anxiety of partner, sense of worth, lack of self-confidence, which are all things that make being in partnership very difficult, right? So I empathize with you, and I do appreciate that you want to have a sensitive response to this person. What I would offer to you is that you need to figure out a way to exit this relationship where you feel like you are standing in your integrity, and to understand that those issues of the person are theirs, not yours. So you don't need to care for them and those issues as you're exiting the relationship. I'm not saying don't be sensitive, but I'm saying that the response that they have to you leaving isn't your responsibility. And I know that sounds kind of shitty and bitchy, but it's true. And you need to hear that.
Okay, good one, good one. One question from Facebook. Are you seeing a trend away from monogamy towards more open relationships or opening existing monogamous relationships because of the changes in culture, i.e. divorce rates and living longer?
Yeah. I see a trend towards exploring these things and talking about them and considering them as an option. And I think that's great, because before that, people were dating multiple people and marrying multiple people and not really talking about it, not really calling it anything, and not having, not having responsible conversations about what that looks like and what that means to the other person that they're with. I think of polyamory and open relationships as a feminist tool, because historically men have been the ones leaving relationships and leaving women to deal with whatever. Whereas polyamory is a way for women to also explore that and to have an opportunity to be fully, sexually actualized in that way, which a lot of women always have wanted to be, but have been socially punished for wanting that. So this is an opportunity And I am very excited that people are thinking about it and talking about it. And as Myisha said, like kink communities and, fetish communities, polyamory communities, they're giving straight folks who are monogamous a lot of tools to work with, because they're creating these structures that are kind of instrumental in making sure that the ship stays afloat, so to speak. When there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of different people involved, you need communication tools. You have to have that. It's a lot of talking. It's more talking sometimes than fucking, to be honest. Ask any poly person that, and they will tell you that. But what I love is that these thoughts and ideas about how to do things ethically and safely and sanely and consensually, those conversations are kind of trickling down into mainstream monogamous straight world, which we need all the tools that we can get.
All right. Here we go. Well, I guess we're going to wrap it up. Last thing we want to do before we close is reiterate your social channels and your website. Plug anything you need to plug in case people want to know about it. They can write it down.
Great. So I am on Instagram and on Twitter at Myisha Battle. It's MYISHA BATTLE. I also have a podcast called Down for Whatever. So if you want to hear my lovely voice once a month, you can tune into that, and that's on iTunes and Stitcher and, all the places that you listen to your podcasts. And then on Facebook, it's my company page, which is called Sex for Life. So you can follow me there. And but follow me on Instagram, because I do a fun Would You Rather Wednesday poll that is really cute and fun, and you get to kind of choose which kind of sexy thing you're into on Wednesdays. And I post the results. But that's me. And I also have a website called MyishaBattle.com.
Awesome. And on my side of things, some of you know me, some of you don't. Maceo Paisley, that's on Instagram, Twitter. Really pushing Citizens of Culture on Instagram and Twitter, and of course the website. Relationship practice, for those of you that are in LA, our signups are happening now. So sign up by March 11th for that class. Myisha, would you be down to come back and do a webinar maybe for these folks or for relationship practice?
I would love to. Yeah, I'm excited about what Citizens of Culture is doing. And this was super fun. I'd love to do anything like this again. And also, I'm looking forward to being one of the instructors for relationship practice too, and getting some IRL time in with your community.
Awesome. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to make sure that the recording gets sent out in an email for those of you who weren't able to watch the whole thing. You can check out the rest of it in a recap, so I'll send that out. And maybe I'll chop a few snippets up and throw them on social media. So have a good night, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Myisha.
Bye, guys.
Bye.